Just Imagine, a podcast series by Imagine Theatre.
Yes, hello again. How are you? Welcome to episode 111 of Imagine Theatre's podcast series. And this time, we're going to preview a brand new British South Asian pantomime called Surinderella.
For more information, go to their website at www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.
Now, in the last episode, we caught up with the New Zealand-born stand-up and pantomime comedian Jared Christmas. If you missed it, you can still check it out along with all of the other previous episodes. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe to the series so that you don't miss any future episodes. So far in the series, we've spoken to stars of the pantomime stage, various creative team members, and many, many more. We've looked at specific titles, explored all of the elements that make a panto work, and we've celebrated panto successes at 3 consecutive UK Pantomime Awards ceremonies. Now this time, we're going to chat to the writer of a brand new pantomime, Surinderella, which we'll explain more about in a moment's time. It's a British South Asian pantomime, which Imagine is co-producing, and it embarks on a UK tour this autumn. It's written by the artistic director and chief executive of the award-winning Rifco Theatre Company, Pravesh Kumar MBE. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. I'm really hot, but other than that, really great.
So, first of all, tell us a little bit about Rifco, the theatre company. How did it all come about?
It came about, really, I was a young actor, and often I'd be standing in the wings looking at a whole sea of white faces in the audience. And I started to think, why are we not watching the plays that are on stage? And you know, with a bunch of friends, we were sitting around my dining table in the kind of late 90s. And we were like, well, why don't we just make something and see what happens? And we made a little play ourselves with no money, you know, stole close to my mum's cupboard, that kind of stuff. And we hit upon this kind of real authentic British South Asian voice, which really felt like our own voice and telling stories from our own lens. And with that came not only, you know, authentic work, but the audience that came to see us, who also looked like us. So, I mean, it was incredible that, you know, we were filling auditoriums with very little marketing budgets, with very little, you know, money, but it felt like there was authenticity in a theatre, in that shared experience. And not that our audiences were only brown, but they were also brown, which was really kind of groundbreaking.
Just tell us about your first experience of pantomime. Do you remember seeing pantomime or hearing about pantomime as a child?
Of course. I mean, I'm British born and bred, so panto's kind of in our bloodline, really, isn't it? We watch it at school. You know, I think my first earliest memory is definitely at school. You know, and I always wanted to be in school plays, but never really had the courage until my best friend in middle school was like, I want to audition for the panto and you're coming with me. And I was like, oh God, do I really have to? And I ended up getting one of the parts, and from that grew my kind of love for the genre and for drama. And, you know, because of her, I ended up being an actor for you know, my early career as well.
So what was it that attracted you and appealed to you about pantomime as a child?
Look, I mean, I grew up, the only time I ever saw people that looked like me on screen or anywhere really was when watching Bollywood cinema. And in those days we had NHS videos that would come in from video shops and then the CDs. And we grew up watching Bollywood cinema, and Bollywood cinema has everything that panto has. It's got, you know, good over evil, it's got songs, it's got all the kind of layers of, you know, drama, comedy. And so, in a way, Bollywood is our panto in a way.
I think you're absolutely right, and we can explore this further. But in terms of the storylines, and I think the sort of archetypal Bollywood storyline was almost defined in the 1970s. And you know, it's strange, isn't it, that they were so right for pantomime, but people like Amitabh Bachchan and Asha Bhosle and others, Asha Bhosle's in her 90s now, they never did pantomime, but they would have been so right for it.
Well, kind of Bollywood is pantomime. If you watch the 70s and 80s films especially, that kind of, you know, theatricality in the movement and the acting and the singing that you get on stage, because of the early Bollywood actors were all stage actors. So in a way, they marry so well. And, you know, for decades, I've been thinking we should do a Bollywood-inspired panto. And just, you know, it just never happened. But here we are now.
We talk about Bollywood because you worked in the industry for about a decade, I think. So you've obviously got a foot in both camps in that you love Bollywood and you love pantomime. And we've talked about why they're so similar. But for those people who don't really know, Bollywood is often used as a term to describe all Indian film. But of course, it's predominantly movies that were filmed and made in what used to be called Bombay, which is now Mumbai. But just define, for those people who don't know, what a Bollywood movie is.
A Bollywood film is what we call a masala film. So masala, like, you know, has ingredients. You know, it's got drama, it's got comedy, it's got songs, it's got pathos. You know, all these things that have to go into and you know, it's a very commercial film which are very star-led. The stories are often very, very similar. I mean, there's been a big evolution of Bollywood in the last 50 years, you know, from the 70s and early 60s to what Bollywood is now. But, you know, they are commercial, star-led films that have very simple stories that can play to mass audiences across the country, including, you know, working classes, much like panto.
If you don't know, I live and have worked in Leicester my entire working life. I have lots of Asian friends. I have watched Bollywood movies, and some of the classics like Sholay as an example, you know, are so fabulous. And one thing that really strikes me about this is not just all the elements that you've mentioned, but when we talk about the bright, colourful costumes in some of them, fabulous choreography and so on. Again, that's so similar to panto.
I mean, you know, it's the original kind of art form. It's that original kind of music hall art form, isn't it? Where, you know, we are the fourth wall is out and we are playing to the audience, and the audience are part. They're not observers. They are part of the journey. They are talking to you and they are heckling you. And if you go to a cinema in India, the audience will heckle the same way you heckle and talk in a panto. It's a very similar audience relationship.
Yeah, and some of the songs would fit into panto today as, you know, audience participation songs. One of my favourites is Nasha Bhosle, Ulu Baba, which you know would slot into a pantomime, you know, tomorrow. You're right about Bollywood changing and branching out, I guess.
Yes.
Because I mentioned I live in Leicester. A few years ago, a Bollywood movie was actually filmed here in Leicester. We have a really big Indian population here, Asian population, and so they came and filmed a Bollywood movie here. It's had to develop, and panto has to develop as well.
Yes.
And this is one area with Surinderella that it can do that, because there still aren't as many brown faces in a pantomime audience as they should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that I've been doing for my entire career is taking, because I'm British South Asian, right? So I take my British roots and my South Asian roots, and there's nothing better than panto to blend them, because, you know, I thought it's just well, as an artist you work from what you know and from who you are, and it just made complete sense to me. And we were talking about this a few years ago. And I mean, we are not the first, you know, South Asian inspired panto. We're probably one of the most ambitious, and it's going to be a really beautiful show, both production wise and what's on stage. I mean, I've written it, and you know, I'm giggling away, you know, when I'm writing it, because I've got, you know, the step banjis, which means sisters in Punjabi, who are Insta vloggers, and so working on this story inspired by the original Cinderella. I keep saying Surinderella now because it's the only thing I can sing. You know, comes from the original kind of Greek tale, I suppose. But, you know, talking about Cinderella and Bollywood, I mean, all the early Bollywood films are Cinderella, so it just made complete sense. You know, you've got the poor girl who's, you know, not very happy, not doing very well, and then she gets saved by a prince. And I was like, well, actually, this all kind of makes sense. But then, you know, artists like me, you know, you want to modernise and make it feel contemporary and make it feel like today. And, you know, I've got a young daughter, and I'm also asking questions about, do young women need to be saved by princes anymore? So there are all these kind of questions that we're asking ourselves. when we're kind of making contemporary work like this.
It's great to see that there are more and more Asian actors appearing in panto. In fact, I noticed from your website, an old friend of mine who I did panto with probably about 10 years or so ago, Rina Fatania, because that's great to see. But this is even better, putting this out to an Asian audience, and hopefully it might inspire them to go and see other pantos as well. But the key is having relatable figures on stage that might inspire them to A, go to the theatre more, or even B, become performers.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, yes, of course we want to inspire younger generations and older generations, families to come out that don't normally go and see panto. But we also want panto audiences to come because this is an alternative panto. Mm-hmm. So, it's really for everyone. It's in English mostly. There's a few bits of Hindi in the songs, but, we've made it for a British audience because not all British South Asians speak the languages. They really don't. So we were like, well, let's make it in English and let's make it as open as possible for everyone who enjoys the genre of panto to come along and have a great time with the family, and also really open that door wider to people that would normally not go. That's really the ambition.
This is nothing new to you in terms of shows, perhaps for panto, but Bollywood, Yet Another Love Story was the first, I think, but also, Frankie Goes to Bollywood, Britain's Got Bhangra and others that you've done so far. What's been the reaction? What sort of audiences are you seeing?
So Frankie Goes to Bollywood played on tour last year and culminated in a long run at the South Bank Centre in London. And I've got to say, it broke all our box office records. We've been around for over 20 years. And so we've seen a real kind of need and want to see things that are contemporary, that are British South Asian. But the audiences were really, really diverse. I mean, there were a lot of British Asian families, but a lot of working class white families with their kids came along because it was accessible and part of British culture. The story is about a young British woman who ends up in Bollywood cinema, which is, a story that I'd seen. It's based on true stories that when I worked there. And I suppose not everything I do is Bollywood inspired. This is probably the third thing I've done in 20 years. But, it's such a popular part of our culture that it makes absolute sense to blend it and bring it into a kind of contemporary way of storytelling.
So tell us a bit more about Surinderella then, because we've mentioned that sort of template for Bollywood movies as musical romance films full of drama, action, comedy and everything else. We know that those are the elements of a good pantomime as well. So how have you merged the two together in Surinderella?
I mean, listen, it was easy. It's been living in my head for a long time. And, as a writer, I often, the characters kind of talk to me for many years. It sounds kind of crazy. But I wanted to write something that felt contemporary, that my, 6-year-old daughter can watch. And my, 70-something, very young, older mother can see as well. And feel like this is for them. And it's contemporary, but it really keeps the traditional story of Cinderella. I wanted to make sure that the story, I didn't move too far away from the story because it felt so right. It landed so well in what I wanted to say. And the bits that, we've really kind of modernized are, the sisters are Insta vloggers, obsessed with their phones, obsessed with how they look, and whereas you've got Surinder, who becomes Cinderella throughout the course of the panto, who is this kind of young orphaned girl who is feisty. She's an eco warrior, grows her own vegetables, and really wants to change her own world. And she's not just a doormat. She has things to say. I wanted her to be inspiring to young women. I won't give the end away.
No.
It's not traditional. But, in a way, when you're writing something that has to sit in today's world, there's lots of things you have to think about. And I also have a responsibility to a community that is very rarely seen on stage. So you've got to be careful how you poke fun at yourself also.
You mentioned the prince, and again, we won't talk about the ending, but Prince Kavi in this is many of the traditional elements of the prince in Cinderella, and I guess along the way there might be a godmother, might be slightly
Yes.
different.
We've got a Devi godmother who is a goddess, a dancing auntie goddess, as she calls herself. She's funny, she's quirky, and she's come from the clouds. And without saying she's a god, because she's not a god, but she's like an angel, which fits into Hindu, Indian mythology really well, without making it a religious piece, because it really is not. And then we have Prince Kavi, who's desperate to get out of his arranged marriage. So lots of kind of things from our culture have been seamlessly brought into the story, which felt quite easy. You know, and we've got Bablu, his royal aide, who's just desperate to get out of servitude and become his own man. So they've all, you know, and what's really lovely is there's a very lovely relationship between the prince and Bablu, and, you know, they're really modern young men who, you know, have quite a lot of Gen Z speak, which was quite difficult for me, I must say.
All of these stories, the overall elements are universal. They have evolved over time because society has changed over time, but all of these elements can work in pretty much any language, in any culture, because, you know, they just work, full stop. And so it's easy to see how you've slotted in, you know, the characters that you have to give it that Bollywood twist so easily. And I guess as well in the ball, for instance, or other scenes for that, there's every opportunity for a Bollywood-type Bhangra routine or something.
Oh yeah, listen, the music is going to be incredible. It's by PBN, Punjabi by Nature, who is from Wolverhampton too, where we're opening. He's a big, brilliant, well-respected British Asian music producer. He is known for giving out real hits across the country. I was just brilliant to be working with him. And we've got an amazing director. I'm not directing, Amit Chana, who was an actor. Many people know him from EastEnders and Benji Like Beckham, the movie. He's directing. So it's a really good, really well crafted creative team. Andy Kumar, who people will also know for TV in India, is the costume designer and looking after production design, and his costumes are just beautiful.
Now, as we move forward, I think it's disappointing in a way that the two cultures, the sort of Indian or South Asian culture and the British culture, haven't merged more in artistic terms. And I'm thinking in music as much as anything. Again, coming from Leicester, the band Corner Shop originated here. And before that, I remember Monsoon, Sheila Chandra, don't you,
Yes.
if you remember that, Ever So Lonely. And this panto is a great opportunity, again, to be inclusive and to bring cultures together, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, and that's exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to bring both cultures together, fuse, celebrate, and entice and engage people to come and see their own authentic selves on stage. And it's really exciting. I'm really hoping that, you know, everyone turns up to see it. And, you know, and I think I'm allowed to say this, but again, we have record-breaking sales occurring already.
Wow.
Which is great.
I think the one thing I want to make it quite clear, and you've referred to this already, this is not a pantomime for an Asian audience. This is for everybody, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely, it's for everybody. And you know, it's not. We're calling it an alternate panto. We're not on traditionally over Christmas. There's lots of pantos over Christmas. So we're doing autumn into Diwali and into Eid. So, you know, it's a different kind of celebration. But it's just a good story and it's a good night out. And it's, you know, I said it to myself, it's very funny.
Once this one is over, could this grow? Could this be, you know, several different productions in time each year and it become an annual thing?
It could be. I mean, I'm already thinking what could be the next one.
Maybe even adapt a Bollywood storyline as a totally different panto for the new generations.
It's so interesting you say this because you mentioned it already. My first production that I ever directed was called Bollywood Yet Another Love Story. And it got huge audiences and the reviewers loved it. It got really good good reviews. And then many of the reviewers said this has got a whiff of panto about it. And it really did. So I think panto comes naturally to me. Maybe I just write panto and I just pretend they're plays.
What is it about pantomime for you then? You know, you talked about, you know, seeing it as a child, auditioning for it as a child, and it stayed with you all these years. What is it? What's the secret of a success of pantomime? It's one of the longest running. I mean, obviously, in previous times, there are elements of panto from Greek theatre, commedia dell'arte, right the way through. In many ways, it's one of the longest forms of theatre, isn't it?
Yes. I think it's the truest form of theatre, because I think what it does is it connects with all audiences, from a real wide range of audiences, like, you know, from very young to the elderly, and that's a rare thing, to be able to put something on stage and everybody's on that collective journey together, and that shared experience, the kind of laughter that you get in a theatre with panto, and the enjoyment and the messaging, you know, because, you know, panto is quite political also, let's not forget, you know, it isn't just, you know, things that are said on stage are you know, there's lots of political messaging in there. So it's a very clever, brilliant format to bring people into theatres, and very often I've noticed is that it's the only time when some people go to the theatre. It's the best-selling thing in the whole year, isn't it, really? We are filling those buildings across the country. And in my opinion, panto is kind of bloodline, really, of theatre, because without it, we would not be filling theatres still. And I think the secret is that it's for all of us.
And the final thing I would say that is the perfect comparison for Bollywood films and pantomime is that in the 21st century, there's very often no time at all that a family sit down together, probably don't even eat meals together very often, don't watch TV together, you know, everybody's got their own phone, laptop, tablet, whatever, but they still go to pantomime and they still sit down and watch Bollywood films. Asian families have been doing that for decades.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the beauty of sitting in a room together, watching something with your phones off, because no one's doing that at home. We're watching Netflix and people still got their phones on, you know. There's something about sitting in a theatre, having an experience together as a family that is unique to panto.
And how does the co-production work with Imagine Theatre then? Is that a facilitating relationship on Imagine's part? Because obviously artistically and creatively, this is a Rifco production, isn't it? So
creatively, I've been working on the script. You know, we've had a couple of workshops, and, you know, Steve has read the script. He's not going to just put his name on something that's not very good. So creatively, we've been leading it, and the great thing about Imagine has been that we are able to access all those brilliant things in the stores that are, you know, the sets, the costumes, and also their real knowledge of what a panto is. You know, so we've been able to really talk about what a traditional panto is with the Imagine team before we started fusing it. So there has been some creative conversations, and also all that brilliant stuff that you guys have in store is just like a gold mine. It's like when you walk in there, it's like Christmas straight away.
Yeah. And the other thing is, this is playing in some beautiful theatres. You mentioned the Wolverhampton Grand to start with, from the 23rd to the 27th of September. Then the Queen's Theatre in Hornchurch, and the Theatre Royal in Windsor, and then finishing at the Watford Palace. Amazing theatres.
Yes, they're all beautiful, beautiful theatres, and they're all selling really well already, which is really great news. And we're about to add another venue for the half-term week in October, the Riverside Studios in London. So that's just been added this week.
That's absolutely fantastic, and that's great to see. And as the reputation grows, you know, even if it's not multiple productions next year, if you do another one, there's a chance that other theatres want to come on board as well. Yeah,
we've already got theatres saying, oh, this is a great idea, you know, can we book it for next year? So this show might go back out again next year, but I'm already thinking what could be the next story that I want to tell in this kind of format. And as you said, there's plenty.
let's not forget that Rifco is much more than a producer of this particular show. Are you still producing short films and doing other projects at the same time?
Yes, absolutely. We're developing 3 brand new musicals right now, which is really exciting. We've got a couple of really good play commissions as well. So really exciting, diverse kind of work, which is British South Asian focused, but for big wide audience for everybody. And I grew up watching white plays and TV, and I can access that. And the same way, everyone can access our stories. It's for everyone. It's universal. Families are the same, no matter what colour you are.
You're absolutely right. So, has acting now taken a back seat for you?
Oh yeah, I gave up acting years ago. I was an okay actor. I mean, it wasn't my calling. It was because I come from a working class background. In a way, it was the only thing I could see that I thought I wanted to be. And then when I was there, I kept watching the other people, the directors and people behind the scenes, and I'd always been writing stories from a very young age. And my brilliant English teacher, Mrs. Holloway, who is now retiring in a few weeks, just kind of really nurtured that in me. And I think, it's a real testament to what teachers can really do as well, because I found real confidence in kind of telling stories and writing at a very early age. But acting was my access in, and in a way, actually, having been an actor is brilliant, because when I'm directing now, I understand the vulnerability of actors and what it's like to be on stage.
Do you know, it's really interesting that with so many people that I've spoken to on this podcast, they've all sort of talked about one inspirational person, and it could be a teacher, it could be a drama teacher or something similar that's given them the inspiration to do what they do. And I think schools are really important in that respect generally anyway, with the arts, and the pressure on the timetable is such that maybe there isn't as much of that as there used to be. We always talk about how important pantomime is in opening children's eyes to theatre and so on, but let's hope lots of schools bring parties to see Cinderella as well, because that will be inspirational in a different way, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think, having looked at some of the bookings, a lot of schools are already starting to look at, booking some of the matinees, because it is an alternative, way of telling a story that we all love and know. And I think especially for young children who have not seen people that look like them on stage before, it's life-changing. I mean, an actor friend of mine only yesterday said to me, he's in a very well-known play at the moment, and he said a young Indian boy came backstage and just shouted, "Oh my God, you look like me," and you're on stage. And what that does is it can be life-changing, I think. And I think that's really important.
You're absolutely right. For all theatre, not just pantomime, it has to be inclusive, and it has to represent the audience and the population in that particular city, whoever they are. They need to be able to see themselves on the stage, not just in terms of the characters, but in terms of the performers as well. Pravesh, I wish you so much success with this, and I hope it's a sign of things to come. I really appreciate your time as well. Thank you so much for talking to us.
No, it's been a real joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and that's it for now. Once again, thank you for listening and supporting this podcast series. Don't forget to subscribe through your favourite podcast app and spread the word to anybody you know who loves pantomime. Next time, I'm going to be joined by another pantomime legend, former children's television presenter Bobby Bennett. So join me, Martin Ballard, next time for episode 112.
Thank you for listening to the latest edition of Just Imagine, the podcast series from Imagine Theatre. And you can find out more by going to www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.